Her name was Denise. We met when we were both 22 and broke and figuring out everything at the same time. Same apartment building. She knocked on my door to ask if I had sugar. I didn't. We stood in the doorway and talked for 3 hours anyway. That was 41 years ago, and she is gone now. Has been gone 6 years. And I will tell you something that I don't say to just anybody. I have not laughed the same way since. Not the same kind of laugh. Not from the same place. And people keep telling me I'll find it again. Find that kind of friendship again. And I smile because they mean well. But they don't understand what they're asking me to replace. Some friendships aren't relationships. They're context. And I want to sit with that for a minute because I think it's the key to why certain ones feel so impossible when they're gone. Most friendships, good ones, real ones, ones that matter, are built in the present. You meet, you connect, you build something. And what you build is about who you are now, who you've become. But certain friendships, the ones that mark you, the ones that leave a permanent shape on your life, those friendships contain your history. They were there for the becoming. They knew the versions of you that no longer exist anywhere except in their memory. The you at 22 who didn't know anything. The you who was terrified and trying not to show it. The you who hadn't lost anybody yet, hadn't been broken by anything yet, was still whole in the particular way you can only be before life has gotten to you. And when that friend is gone, those versions of you become somehow inaccessible, because the only other person who held them is gone too. There's a kind of witnessing that only time gives you. You can meet someone wonderful today, form a genuine connection, build real trust. All of that is possible and real and worth pursuing. But what you cannot manufacture is the part where they were there. Were there when you didn't know how the story ended. Were there for the bad relationship you thought was the love of your life. Were there when the thing you were most afraid of happened. Were there for the version of the crisis that felt unsurvivable before you knew you'd survive it. They carry the evidence of your life in a way that someone new cannot. Not because the new person isn't good enough, because the new person wasn't there. And there is no shortcut to there. Time is the only currency that buys it, and you can't accelerate it. So when people say you'll find a new friend, and maybe you will, and maybe that friendship will be beautiful, what they don't quite say is that it will be a different thing. Not lesser necessarily, but different. Built forward instead of backward, without the weight of all those years underneath it. And for some losses, different is not enough. Different is just different. There's also this. Certain friendships become the place where you are most yourself. Not the self you present, not the self that handles things and has it together and knows what to say. The self that is uncertain and petty sometimes, and scared more often than you let on, and still working out things you should have worked out by now. That self needs a container, needs somewhere safe to exist without consequence. And not every friendship becomes that. Most don't. Most friendships have some level of performance in them. Not fakeness, just the natural editing that happens when you're not 100% sure the ground will hold. But certain friendships, over years, through enough hard things together, the editing stops. And you're just in the room with someone who knows all of it and stays anyway. Who has seen you at the places you're not proud of and didn't update their opinion of you downward. That is rare. That is rarer than people acknowledge. And when it's gone, you feel the exposure of it. The sudden absence of the container. You're walking around with a self that has nowhere safe to land. And then there's the humor. I know that sounds small after everything else, but I don't think it is. With Denise, I laughed in a register that I have not found with anyone else. Not funnier things. The jokes themselves weren't always the point. It was the shared frequency. The thing where you both find the same specific detail of a thing hilarious and you don't have to explain it, and the other person is already laughing before you finished the sentence. That is built. That takes years of inside language and accumulated references and a shared understanding of the world that gets refined over decades until it's something almost private. A dialect that only two people speak. And when one of them is gone, the dialect dies with them. Because it was theirs. It only existed between them. You can't bring it somewhere else because it doesn't work somewhere else. It was made for exactly that room and that person and that specific combination of two people who knocked on each other's door when they were 22 and broke and talking for 3 hours about nothing. So when people ask why you can't just move on, why you can't just make new friends, why you're still grieving something that some people would consider a normal part of life, the answer is that what they're describing as a friendship was not a friendship in the ordinary sense. It was a record of who you were, of who you became, of the life you lived when someone was paying close enough attention to actually see it. And records, when they're lost, leave a silence that nothing else fills the same way. Not because nothing good is left, because that specific thing, that exact record, that particular frequency, that dialect that only lived between two people, is finished and was singular and deserved to be called what it was, irreplaceable.